All right, guys. So we're going to move on. The next session we're going to do, I just call it Nutrition 101. Now, today I'm fairly knowledgeable on this topic, but when I started off on this 38 years ago, I basically just regurgitated whatever else was believed around me and what doctors would say that if you just eat a balanced meal, you're okay. But nobody could tell you what the balanced meal is. And then as I found out what is the so-called balanced meal, not even the nutritionist and the doctors have balanced meals. And then we got involved with New Life, and I learned so much about the field of nutrition and especially therapeutic nutrition. And that's when I started to come across that there are so many wannabes out there that just latch onto a product, and they also call it the vitamin C and they also call it the vitamin B. So how do you end up comparing apples with apples? So tonight's talk is just a quick overview to equip you with some information that should you then be confronted with a product or a nutritional supplement, then at least you've increased your vocabulary to have a better understanding. So the first one is I want to talk about whole food source versus natural, or another way of saying it would be organic versus synthetic. Now, organic is as it is in nature, and the legitimate companies would do it from actual food sources that's part of the current food chain of human beings. So that's an important condition. Whereas scientists, and I've got a bit of a chemistry background myself, if I took the example of vitamin C and you strip it of all the components and the bicomponents and the riboflavonoids and all those kind of things, there's a key ingredient that they refer to as ascorbic acid. Now, scientists can, under laboratory conditions, come up with a molecule that they've created that shows on all the tests to be exactly the same as ascorbic acid in nature. But it's like, if I can give you the example, if you take your two hands, left and right, and you put it in front of you, and you now have to describe the shape of the hands, and you would say it's a flat surface with 5 tentacles. Then if I look at my left hand, it would meet the requirement. It's a flat surface with 5 tentacles. If I look at my right hand, it would meet the requirement. It's also 5 tentacles. And so when the scientists look for the presence of the 5 tentacles and the flat surface in ascorbic acids, they find it. And then scientifically, because it now appears to be the same, they can say it is also natural. So be careful when you hear the word natural. It's not always referring to organic and a whole food source. So if we unpack it a bit further, ascorbic acid is found in nature, but only in small amounts as part of a complete complex of phytonutrients that all come together as natural vitamin C. And included in that ascorbic acid would then be ascorbigon and all these other factors that they mentioned there. Now, how they manufacture synthetic ascorbic acid, they take corn, which is genetically modified corn, which is freely available, and then they break it down with heat, enzymes, and acetone. When you read acetone, think of nail polish remover. And hydrochloric acid, think of stuff that you throw in your swimming pool to kill bacteria. And then the final product of that is ascorbic acid. And it measures the same as the whole food source ascorbic acid, except if I go back to my example of the hand, what is different from my left hand to my right hand is the position of my thumb. So on my left hand, my thumb is on the right-hand side, and on my right hand, my thumb is on the left-hand side. So when you take the synthetic vitamin C or ascorbic acid, and you put it through and you dissolve it in a liquid, and you put polarized light through it, then the natural one will move the light that goes through it, instead of a straight line, it would slant it to the left, and on the synthetic one, it will slant it to the right. So in nature, nature doesn't make the ascorbic acid or the right slanted ascorbic acid. It only makes the left slanted. Now, this is important because when ascorbic acid comes into your body has a natural ability to recognize what it eats. And when it sees the D parts, it doesn't know what to do with it. And you eat it, it dissolves, but it also flushes out within 2 hours. Whereas the left-hand one is 100% bioavailable, and the right one is less than 1% bioavailable. So when people think they are clever to pay very cheaply for vitamin C, but they don't know it's the synthetic one, they actually just waste their money. And the scary part is, in vitamin C is very important. How it came about was when the sailors of old developed scurvy, and the further studies then showed all sorts of other healing benefits, cardiovascular health, healing, boost of immunity, works as an antioxidant and fights allergies and allergic reactions. And when it becomes time for summer change or weather changes, people say, let me stock up on my vitamin C so I don't get flu. The problem is if you stock up with the synthetic one, because of the way it's made and is not recognizable by the body, if you have too large quantities of it over time, it can cause hardening of the arteries, and in some cases, because it doesn't have any antioxidant ability, it can also lead to cancer. So just bear in mind what is the important difference between organic versus synthetic. And you can expect for organic to, on the surface of it, to think like it looks like it costs more money because you have to physically grow the lemons and grow the food sources. Whereas synthetically, you can just make as many large quantities as you want in laboratory conditions. But here's the challenge: bioavailability, almost zero versus 100% bioavailability. Then another thing that when you want to compare apples with apples, there are certain things, especially in the field of minerals, calcium, magnesium, zinc, that in nature, so it's natural, it comes out of the natural food sources. Now, by the way, even though the natural food source might be something like spinach or whatever, where does the food source gets it from? It gets it from minerals that's dissolved in the ground and then it's absorbed in the food source. Now, something like zinc is not regularly available in all of South Africa. So even if you eat the so-called food source of zinc, you could still be deficient in zinc because that wasn't available in the ground where this food source was cultivated. But that was just an aside. Now, even in its natural form from the cheeses and wherever you get calcium, the bioavailability, in its worst case, some people will sell you calcium tablets cheap, almost a bag full of the stuff, but it's literally crushed dolomite, washed, colored, and pressed into a little pulp. But you might as well swallow little rocks. The availability is less than 5%. The natural sources can go up as high as 20%, but it's difficult to absorb. Why? Because of the nature of a mineral, it has a charge. It could have a negative charge or a positive charge. Now, if you look at magnets, and I've just got an illustration here. What happens when you bring north to south? Or, your north to south will always attract. And it becomes so strong that you can almost not pull the two magnets apart. But what if you're trying to put north to north or south to south? It will repel. It doesn't matter how hard you press, you can't actually bring it together. Now, that's the problem with the natural presence of calcium, magnesium, zinc, and these kinds of minerals that your body needs. But because they carry a charge, when it comes to the cells where it has to be absorbed, it could have an effect of either repelling or heavy attraction. So what the best source is if you can neutralize and mask it so that the body doesn't see its calcium per se. And the way they do it, they do it chelation. So they take the metallic ion, which is now calcium. They then have a chelating agent. In our case, in New Life, they use amino acids. Now, if you can remember a few sessions back, we talked about amino acids as being one of the most important things next to water and oxygen. Your body loves it. It craves. So the body then, so you mask it, so the body sees a neutral atom, absorbs it in the bloodstream, take it to the cells. At cellular level, the amino acid is then pulled off and used for protein, and then it releases the metallic ion, the calcium, magnesium, whatever, for the work it's then needed at cellular level. And just this process of chelating, so it's science working with nature. In the case of our chelated calcium, for instance, whereas the best on the market is maybe available at 20%, ours is available at more than 80%. So people who are calcium deficient and they've tried everything and they don't know how to increase their calcium, try the one that is chelated. So we now spoke about organic versus synthetic. We spoke about natural versus chelated. And the last one I want to tackle tonight is then uh, natural versus sustained release. Now, this natural is not bad. This is actually the food source itself. And we're going to use the example of B vitamin. So here are all the food sources of B vitamins. Now, in both vitamin C and vitamin B, these vitamins are water soluble. And even though it might be 100% bioavailable, within 2 hours of eating it from whatever food source, what the body hasn't used during that time is then secreted through the urinal tract, and you then get rid of it. So it doesn't store in a fat cell or anywhere else. So you need to either constantly eat, or you have to find other ways to release it slower. And that's where sustained release come in. Now, sustained release then takes the active ingredient of vitamin C or vitamin B, and now this is just a picture I found, so it's not necessarily the actual picture that you have of the products in New Life, but it illustrates that they have a protective coating around it, but inside is then a mixture of the what do you call it, the chelating agent. So it's just another word for carrier. And within that chelating agent, you then have the active B complex and the active vitamin C, depending on what product we're referring to. And then, in our case, the chelating agent is also then a combination of amino acids, again, because the body loves amino acids. It's natural. The body then absorbs it, and as it absorbs it, it also then releases chunks of the B complex and the vitamin C. And this simple process that's now called sustained release can give you availability in your body. Instead of 2 hours, it can now go up to 6 to 12 hours at a time. So for people like us who work very stressful lives and you're in lots of meetings and exposed to lots of people, make sure that you up your vitamin intake by, when you do vitamin B and C, take the sustained release one. When you take minerals, take the chelated minerals. And by all means, don't go for synthetic, go for the organic, natural, whole food source product.